Norbert, you will not escape me now.
I try.
Yeah, I know. But let's start with something easy, but which was interesting to me. I've talked to several people now who've seen the film. All of them loved it, and all of them thought it was a really expensive film, interestingly, if they didn't know about the production circumstances, which is quite amazing if, like me, you were there and saw the production, which is actually made threadbare. So how actually does a movie like this come together? Give people an idea.
Yeah, it was all DIY, also made it by yourself. So we had a little budget, to be honest, so we got a little funding, but very little. And I just asked all my friends, like you, he's in the movie 3 times, she's in the movie, as you know, she's the singer, but she's also a lot of other...
A prostitute, for example.
Prostitute and a lot of other roles. So I asked all my friends and all the other people of the team asked all their friends, and nobody gets paid.
But you get free drinks and food if you appear on set.
Yeah, we always have beer and something to smoke and something to eat on set.
And lovely invitations to the festival here, so...
Yeah, but when you set up a film like this, I mean, previously, maybe I can explain, Norbert is mostly known as an avant-garde filmmaker in Austria. Most of his films are found footage, but also for practical reasons, because shooting films basically costs money. And when you make films, maybe you were here last year, he has, for instance, made a found footage film that is made from all the scenes from extant Lon Chaney films and arranges them into a new narrative. But now with the 2551 films, basically it's feature films that you are making, even though you are not making them.
Yeah, my first movie was also a feature, not a feature film, it was a short film, so of course I love to shoot by myself, but I often cannot afford it, so before I make nothing, I make found footage films, because but I love found footage movies, as you know. He works at the Austrian Film Museum, and we are friends for a long time. And I always ask for the movies there, and of course I love to work with the material from other directors. But of course it makes much more fun to do your own movie. But before I make nothing, I make a found footage movie because it costs nothing. So nowadays, within the digital era, you can work really for very, very low money, and even for this movie, you know, the digital. Before it was you know, as you can see, I'm not the youngest guy anymore. So when I was starting, you know, it was very, very expensive to shoot on 35 millimeter, or even on 16 millimeter. It was so expensive. Nowadays, the material costs nothing. You just need a camera, a digital camera, and a chip, and that's it. And a PC, I have a normal laptop, and that's all you need to make a movie nowadays.
But how many shooting days did you have for this film? Stretched out over time, of course, but...
27.
27 days. And you were, of course, also aware that many things could only be happening in post-production, right?
Yeah, of course. Nowadays we have post-production, we have all this digital post-production, and without these digital instruments I couldn't do nothing, because nowadays you can, you know, all the coloring, all this stuff I make in the post-production, of course, yes. And I do everything by myself. So I sit in front of my laptop and work for a year and do everything by myself. So this costs nothing, just time, of course, but I can do it by myself. So this is cheap. Yes.
Yeah, but also you have to give some credit to like the scenography and the mask department and the costumes who really do like a huge effort into making like these whole special effects things, which are all like analog, of course. Like there's a lot of work in the post-production, but yeah, I think what's really lovely about the movie is that there's so much love to detail, to like the whole analog special effects that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. I've been there for 2 days of the shooting, which enabled me to play 3 roles. So you see how it has to be done very efficiently, and you come basically down into a cellar where all the walls are already, you see all the posters you see in the background, and so everything of that is there. Then there is the choice of which costume will you get, which part will you play. is that the part you enjoy most, actually?
Yeah, thanks, Julia, for that. Of course, I have a team of very young, very nice, very enthusiastic, very talented people. Without them, I couldn't do nothing. Without my cameraman, without my scenographic, without my costume and mask people, I couldn't do nothing. So, of course, without my great team, I couldn't have done anything. So, of course, but it's more like a workshop. It's not like a classical movie where the director comes and says, you make this and this and this and that. So it's more like a workshop. I invite a lot of people, and some people are crazy enough to work with me, and then I say, make what you want, make what you want, make what you want, and they suggest a lot of stuff. Like, when you can tell the story how we met, she was a camera assistant, and then she told me she made music, and then I say, okay, let me listen to your music.
Yeah, we met over a program over the university when he was like a guest lecturer over the Grotesque, which is like extremely fitting, of course. And then I showed him we should pitch in some like ideas for a project for the Grotesque, and I would like show him some pictures from like dead animals or whatever that I took back in India. And of course, it was like pretty clear that we would get along quite well after that. So that kind of like came to like me being part of the production of the second movie, first as a camera and light assistant, and then he got heard of like me also starting to make music, but it's just like really a very naive kind of like intuitive way of like producing sounds and composing music, like literally just like slamming a bass guitar against the fucking like desk or whatever, like experimenting with vocals and so on. So that for me was a really nice opportunity to like do something like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but as you've brought up the Grotesque, I think that is something that goes through all of Norbert's work, and I think it always plays both ways, because the Grotesque can be something very funny, but it can also be something horrible. And when you conceive a film like this, do you think of it as a comedy or a horror movie, or is there no difference for you between that?
Of course, there's a difference, but I love the both aspects of the Grotesque. I love the funny aspect, you know, like all these clowns and all these things, yeah, uncanny also, and I love all this kind of slapstick movies from Chaplin and Keaton, but I also love Nosferatu and Caligari and all these kind of things. So I love all those grotesque things, the funny thing and the tragic thing, and I try to put it together in one movie. So it's a mix-up of slapstick and horror, as you saw. And thanks for staying for so long. Yeah.
But if I would force you to categorize this movie, would you call it a horror comedy, or would you call it something else?
The whole trilogy, it's a fairy tale movie.
Yes, beautifully put. As you've been talking about silent films, which I know you love, but that was also an interesting experience. That, of course, the shooting of this film, it's very much the acting, with everybody has a mask, so you don't see the facial expressions. So acting is very much, it returns back to this over-exaggerated bodily style of silent movies, because you have to express what you cannot see in the face through body language.
Yeah, so let me shortly explain. So I wanted, before I'm very much fascinated by faces. Before I made a lot of movies with faces, like the Lon Chaney movie and the Boris Karloff movie and so on. So I'm very interested in faces. And then I tried, I'm an experimental filmmaker, and then I try and ask myself, can I make a movie without facial expressions? Because facial, we had a lot of drinks before. Facial expressions are, you know, that the most, you see, what you see the most in movies are facial expressions in all kinds of movies. And so then I tried to make a movie without facial expressions, just with masks. And this was the whole idea from this trilogy. And what was the question, sorry?
About the silent acting.
The silence, yeah. And the casting was very, very hard. There's not one professional actor, not one professional performance artist in this movie. None of them is a professional, because we casted a lot of people, and not one professional actor could use his body and so on. So we I hope we found people who can move and who can express themselves with their body language. And of course, this is very, very important. And I found some very, very nice guys who are working for me for nothing and doing all this crazy stuff with me.
Well, also like maybe the story about how you met Stefan, which is like the ape guy. So the protagonist. Do you want to
explain maybe?
No, I don't know so much about it because I wasn't there. I wasn't in the team back then for the first movie. But what I know of is that you like, what kind of sport does he do? He does like.
Yeah, tell us a bit about his
sport,
background.
right?
It's quite
we
curious.
were looking just for a lot of extras, so we thought we can cast a whole soccer teams and whole lacrosse. He was playing lacrosse.
Lacrosse, yeah, right. That's the word.
And we thought, okay, then we have 20 people at once. And he was one of the lacrosse players. So lacrosse is a sport like tennis, and it is a mixture of tennis and, I didn't know it before, it's a mixture of tennis and soccer. So you have a small ball and you have the things, but you run on the field and you have a goal. And he was just completely crazy. And so they thought, hey, this guy is so crazy, we need him. But in his real life, he's a manager and he's in a big concern, he's in a big energy concern, and in his real life, he's a very, very serious guy. But when he makes sports, or when he make this, he's so great. You know, and we can. So when you don't have much money, you can't afford to make many, many takes. And to him, I just have to say, hey, make here, jump here, and make this, and fall down there, and he makes it, and it's a one take. And
yeah, it's really amazing how much like intuitive, just like raw talent he has when it comes to acting. Just like you put him in the scene and you just kind of like, you can really see like he focuses, he has so much things that he like thinks about too, like for the team. Yeah, great actor, great guy.
How was it for you acting the bit parts?
Yeah, to me it also was like one of the first times when I was like in front of the camera, because I also like to enjoy to be behind of the camera mostly. But so I know Norbert, and I also know the camera guy Martin Putz, which is an amazing camera guy. Of course, like I really trust him and how he like captures things and how he sees things. So I felt really comfortable with it. But of course, I had like the eye, like what do you call it in English, like the eye blind, and I couldn't see shit. Like I was just standing there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get out of balance. But no, to me also it was quite a nice and interesting experience to be in front of a camera and also like to see it on a big screen. Yeah, it was nice.
Masha?
I do wonder about, oh my God, how much do you know, because you, Christoph, also, and then maybe Norbert, you will jump in for Stefan, who is the ape man, but how much do you then know before you go and act in Norbert's film? Because on the one side, when we're talking, it seems like, oh, you just arrive and you don't know basically almost anything. Norbert doesn't almost, plan ahead, but can make something like as intricate as this out of not planning ahead, which seems to me completely mind-boggling. So on the one side, how much does Ape Man know, where I would suppose that he does the work that goes, is there planning ahead? Do you get any information ahead? Do you become a character just by coming to the set for the first time, or as much as you're comfortable revealing?
Well, I can talk about my experience as an extra. I came on the, I mean, a long time ago when this project was actually just one script. Norbert gave it to me to read, but it was just an outline, so I had a general idea of where this movie is going, but then he had already shot the first film, which covered most of it, but not everything of it. So I had a general idea where the whole thing was going, also because I had seen the first film, obviously. But then you come on set and you basically arrive, and you decide you will be part of this group of extras who is doing, for instance, one of the roles I'm playing is that there are these gangster guys standing around and kicking one person on the floor, and luckily I was the one to kick the person on the floor and not the person getting kicked, but basically I was just given, well, I had the choice of mask actually, which is very nice. So if you are smart, you can choose some really good masks, because Norbert has an amazing collection there.
Huge collection, yeah.
And then you get, well, actually, costume department will assign you some things that fit it, but then you stand there for the scene basically, and there will be a general outline, like Norbert will come through with Martin and say, this is what we will do in the scene, and this is what will happen, and then you reenact the scene maybe 1 or 2 or 3 times, depending on how much time is there to shoot. But basically it was just about me perfecting enthusiastic kicking in that scene, for instance.
Well, I guess there is a script, of course. There's a script, of course, there's like a vision like from Norbert and from Martin what they want to see, but I think what's really special about the whole film set is that it's really a space for like a lot of like collaboration and just like experiments, also like exploring, and it makes it like a nice thing to do.
Yeah, we don't know every day how much people will show up, and so we invited a lot of people, but we can't pay anyone, so sometimes people show up, sometimes not, and then they're here, and then we decided, okay, like he's a man with a lot of nipples, and then we put a lot of hair on your chest, and
I didn't know him back then. I just saw him performing the nipple character, and I was like, fuck, that's fucking disgusting. Like, he did such a great job with it.
I was also impressed, but also, yes, after the kicking thing, basically, Norbert decided, you should be the man who plays this nipple character. And then I spent also 1 or 2 hours just being prepared, because it takes a lot of time to get all this nipple and the hair on, and then the hair was not good enough. So Norbert helped personally to tear apart some wigs, so that there would be more ugly hair on my chest. Until that was finished, it was like 1 or 2 hours, and then they shot something else in between, and then I was ready to basically perform as the nipple guy, which also was a mask. It's a great mask. It's one of the best masks. Yeah. Wonderful mask, but you don't see anything in it. So I had no idea. It was just Norbert standing in front of me and screaming and more, basically. Yes. So this is how you make a great movie. I think we have one question.
It's a lot of improvisation, to be honest. We don't have the time to rehearsal. We don't have the budget to do anything before. So we decide on the set, but that's the fun about it. So when you make a big movie with a big budget, you know, everything is decided before you shoot it. So and with us it's different. You come to the set, and then we decide what we can do with the people we have, and with the set we have, and with the props we have.
Okay. I have 3 questions. Sorry. The first one is, I think you didn't mention that yet, so where was the movie shot? Because was it in a studio, or is it an actual, I don't know, war bunker or something like that?
We shot at 7 different locations, and it's all in Vienna and in the suburbs of Vienna, because we had, of course, we had the Nazis then, and there are a lot of bunkers there and a lot of big cellars there. And we shot it all in Vienna and around them, because they couldn't afford to build something like that. So we just use existing locations in Vienna.
My next question is, were you inspired by some other work? Because I found your movie very special, but maybe just the lighting reminded me of, for example, Sin City or something like that. And I was wondering if you think that some other work or literature or movie had influence on you?
I'm sorry, what did it remind you of?
Sin City.
Okay.
Of course, all the movies I made before was so-called concept movies, so I was always dealing with the work of other people. It was called appropriation art. I'm a trained artist, not a trained filmmaker, so I did appropriation art. So I use the art of other people to make my own art out of them. And of course, in these movies, you can see a lot of the influence of a lot of other directors, from, of course, David Lynch to whatever, and of course, to Paul McCarthy and and so many artists. So I could tell you 100 names, but of course I'm influenced by a lot of great artists, and all this comes together then in my movie.
Yeah, I also thought of Lynch. Okay, and my last question is, I also think you didn't mention this yet, but why did you decide to write the story at the beginning?
At the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a very, very long time. It took more than 5 years just to get the little funding, because nobody wants to produce a movie like that. And then I applied for a short movie, and then I make with the budget from a short movie this movie. And I lied to completely, and I wrote them another movie and made the movie with that. But in the beginning, yeah, I was interested in making this movie with this mask, and then I wrote down all my nightmares and all my anxieties and all my fears, and all the things you normally want to see. Because before I made abstract art, and I always was an artist to try always to be clever and to make clever things and beautiful things. And then I said, okay, I'm bored about that. I made it for 20 years. So now I wanted to make something that's really ugly and disgusting and stupid and so on. So I write down all my nightmares, everything I don't want to see, everything I don't want to hear, everything that's really horrible for me. And so it's a very personal film also, yeah.
Okay, I have one more question, but it's really basic. How many masks, not like the real number, but about how many masks did you use for your movie?
How many masks do you own?
Yeah.
To be honest, I never counted them, but it's... so I'm collecting masks, and there was a little kid, so I always wished for my birthday a mask. So I'm collecting masks, and there was a little kid, because I'm fascinated in human faces, and I have thousands of them, but I never counted them.
You just said that you got a little founding, but is it in Austria that if you get the founding, then the founders, the financiers, they have to see the film before signing like a paper? And if they did, no,
in Austria it's a boring discussion, but in Austria we have two film funding systems. It's the big so-called big film funding, where they found all the feature films with few 100,000 till few million movies, but there's another kind of film funding. It's in the art department, and there you get, of course, very little money, but it's art film, and there you have really, you get less. You get 10 to 1% from what the big movies get, but still you get a little money, and they accept everything. But with a big, so I tried before in my lifetime. A lot of time to get the big money for my movies, but of course nobody will give me a few $100,000s for a movie, so I made it for a few €1,000. But they accept it, yeah, because it's art. It's not movies, it's not film, it's art.
And just another one, you use a little bit of stop motion animation, just a little bit. If you would have more money, do you think you would go in the direction to use more? Because it gives a really eerie...
There will be more stop motion animations in the next part, but I met a very nice friend of us.
Paul Lechmann.
He's 20, when he was 18, and he teaches himself how to make stop motion animations, and I met this, so we made, of course, at Instagram and Facebook, we're looking for people who will help, and then he sent me a mail and said, hey, I'm love to doing stop motion animations. He was 18 then, and he sent me some tests he made in the age of 18, but it was the Corona era. He told himself, he teaches himself making stop motion animations from just YouTube videos. And he sent me some stop motion animations he did. And I said, wow, great, come. And then he made these stop motion animations for me.
It's
for no money
like
and
insane. I think I think the stop motion animations, like, they bring such a big quality also, like, to the movie, like, on another layer. It's like amazing what he does.
Yeah, but it's costly, no? So it costs money if you want to make more or even more complicated. Probably.
no, but Paul, you know,
Yeah,
now he's
sure,
20
but,
and
like,
he's still working for me for
yeah,
nothing, and
Well,
exploitation is the basis
no, like
of.
no,
he gets a little money now. But
of course he does.
Well, maybe a question I should ask you and then also the audience. As you said, in opposition to all this beautiful art, you wanted to make a film that was ugly and repulsive and stupid. Do you think you have succeeded?
Well,
No,
what do you think?
yeah, yeah, because our aim when we shot the movie, and of course we had all these discussions how we make the butthole eyes and how this and that, and of course you have to laugh and what are crazy things we're talking about right now. And our aim was the cinemas should be empty after the screenings.
Failure?
So I failed. We thought it should be the most disgusting movie and everyone should be leaving the cinema till the screening. So we failed, yes.
Yeah, but maybe a quick question there. Who thinks the movie is ugly and repulsive should raise his hand? Yeah, total failure.
Total.
Sorry, Norbert.
Okay.
Any more questions from the audience? Yeah, but also there at the back. Yeah.
So can you tell us, for the end of the trilogy, we follow Ape Man that will finally really be happy with the boy? I mean,
What?
because he's looking for the boy and he finds him, but then in the very end he's fail. So you don't wanna just give us
What will happen in part 3?
Yeah, just
You want to know what will
Spoiler?
happen
we
in part
follow
3?
Ape Man in 3 and more is coming.
Yeah. So we are now working on part 3. We are already shooting it, and now we have a break for coming to Slovenia and getting drunk, because
Yeah,
otherwise we're
the
working
team is still
for,
working right
for
now.
20 to 16 hours a day on the movie. So we thought now we have 3 days of a break, but when we come back to Vienna on Monday, we still are on work for the part 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and the main like film set is going to be in May, actually, like the most of May.
So if you want to apply, there is still a chance, actually,
Yeah.
for May. Right to
If you have
Everyone
some
is
secret
welcome. Everyone
fantasy
is
that you want to
welcome.
live out.
Yeah.
There was another question up there, I think. Yeah.
What was it like to work with child actors on this kind of movie, and did they want to see the movie afterwards? What did you tell them?
Yeah, the child, all parents was there all the time, and we also had one a pedagogue. I don't know the English word. We had just had one trained person just for the kids there all the time, and the parents were there all the time, and the kids had a lot of fun. For example, I always tell the same story. When we asked the kids, you know Hansel and Gretel, the Brothers Grimm, and then they asked the kids, who want to be in a cage? And all the kids were, I want to be in a cage, I want to be in a cage. So,
Yeah, they really enjoyed it.
so they really had
It's
fun,
insane.
and they are allowed to, to draw on the walls, to make everything dirty, to run around. So all the kids are happy, no. So I'm also a father, so no kids were traumatized by that. Of course, the people look horrible, the images look horrible, and the one image where the child was beaten up, it was, of course, an adult in the costume of the child. So all childs were very, very happy. They had a lot of fun, and they will come back for the next part. Yes.
Okay. So I do think that movie was ugly and grotesque in a good way, but do you think that you could, maybe in the future, or just if you made this movie again, made it even like uglier and more grotesque? Do you think that people nowadays are so used to seeing pictures like that, and that it doesn't like influenced them?
There are two things about that. So all my inspiration comes from the internet. I just watch Instagram and Tumblr and AliExpress, and I found all this fucking pervert things on AliExpress. I could never imagine things like that. But when I found them, I said, wow, that's so sick. I have to use that in my movie. Because you don't have to go to a porno page or whatever. You just put in, because I found all these dolls, you just have to, you go to AliExpress and you go a life-size doll, because I need for formerly movies, I need some dummies. You give in life-size dolls, and then you came up this really, really creepy dolls without extremists and whatever. And this is, wow, that's so sick. I need to use that in my movie. So all the ideas there are stolen. Yeah, that are not my ideas, because now we live in a pornographic era, and everyone can get all kind of pornography everywhere on the mobile phone. And yeah, this is the first thing. And sorry, I forgot the question again.
Yeah, it was made of two parts, I think. So, do you think that people nowadays are used to seeing obscure and ugly pictures like this? So maybe we already answered that. And the first question was that if you would make it uglier, if you would make it again, or if you would make a movie in the future, would it be even?
Part 3 will be, there will be no red light district anymore, no more pornographic scenes, no more sex scenes at all. It will be very long shots. There will be nothing sexistic anymore in the part 3. So I've done this. This is enough for me. But after this, of course, I found some other stuff, and I heard some other stuff, and I said, "Wow, this would also be great." But now I've done this, and it was enough for me. And now it's for me, it's enough. Yeah.
Back to art.
I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it again. So. Of course, we could do it much more disgusting. And
well, there's still some I don't know, compulsive scenes in the third movie, but it's not comparable to the second one, I guess. Yeah, it's a different aim, of course.
Maybe one last question: is narrative in any form important to you, or is it just something that you need to write to get the funding?
Yes, as you asked the question because you know it. So I tried so many years to get the funding for the film, because the first script was completely surrealistic and not a story at all. And then they sent me and then they sent a proposal back, and so on and so on and so on. And this goes on for years, and the story comes in on and on and on. And now I think I have now enough of story that they're funding the project, but it's still kind of an experimental movie. But I'm, as you know, as I told you before, I'm a trained visual artist, and I'm not so much interested in telling stories. So I'm interested in images and in pictures, and in not so much in storytelling. But yeah, so I did tell a story, but a very there's a story of part 2 is just a
chase, basically.
Just a chase, you know. The guy chases the girl, and the guy chases the boy. So it's just a chase.
He's chased by evil guys,
and he's chased by the police. So it's not a big kind of a story. So I'm not interested in telling stories, but I'm much more interested in how the image looked like.
Well, it's kind of a love story also, isn't it? Underneath it all.
I would not disagree. Yeah. Any more questions? Or otherwise, maybe we leave you now without the story and the prospect of future art next year. Do come back. Nothing will happen. Enjoy.
Yeah, thanks a lot for staying. Thanks a lot for visiting. Thanks a lot for the invitation, Masha. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm happy to have my dearest friends with me. And
thank you.
thanks a lot to everyone.
Thank you, Norbert. Thank you, Julia.